Phone buzzed the gates of Harper House at 3:07 a.m., red light blinking like a hungry eye. Security logged the intrusion, traced the signal to a rented van parked 3 blocks away, and dispatched a silent golf cart to escort the intruder off the premises. Inside the mansion, Daniel Harper watched the feed on a wall of screens, oxygen hissing soft through the cannula tucked under his nose. He wore the same charcoal sweater he'd worn for a week, sleeves pushed to the elbow, veins mapping the backs of his hands like subway lines. At 72, he looked less like a dying about to die and more like a man who had already calculated the exact minute. $12 billion waited in accounts no one could fully trace. The will sat in a fireproof drawer. One page, no codicils, no loopholes. Lawyers had begged for revisions. He had sent them away with polite refusals and stronger painkillers. Reporters offered 7 figures for a deathbed quote. He offered silence. The world assumed the fortune would scatter to museums, scholarships, maybe a panda sanctuary. They had spreadsheets ready. They had no idea. Daniel closed the drone feed and opened a private server. Lines of code scrolled clean, elegant, older than most of his employees. He typed a single command, hit enter, and watched a progress bar climb to 100%. A file transferred to an encrypted drive labeled simply M. He shut the laptop, leaned back, and stared at the ceiling fresco he had never liked. Somewhere in the house, a clock chimed 4. He smiled, small and sharp, then wheeled the oxygen tank toward the kitchen. The chef had left a single cup on the counter, black coffee, 2 sugars, foam swirled into a fern. Daniel lifted it, sniffed, sipped. Perfect. He carried it to the side door, the one no one used except deliveries. Outside, the December air bit hard enough to make lungs ache. He waited. At 4:17, a scooter puttered up the service drive, headlight cutting through the dark. The rider wore a green apron over a hoodie, helmet tucked under one arm, dark hair escaping a messy bun. She balanced a paper cup in a cardboard carrier and squinted at the intercom. Mia Reyes had never seen a house this big. The app had pinged the order at 3:45 VIP, triple tip, instructions blunt, side gate, no doorbell. Knock once. She knocked. The door opened before her knuckles lowered. Daniel studied her the way he once studied buggy code. You were early. Traffic was light. She handed over the coffee. Black, 2 sugars. Fern for luck. He took the cup, sipped, eyes narrowing in approval. You always draw plants in billionaires' drinks? Only the ones who tip like they're scared of karma. She shifted her weight. You were Daniel Harper. And you, Ramia Reyes, 22, night classes at De Anza, Python error, 403 last Thursday. He tilted his head. I read your Stack Overflow post. Her mouth opened, closed. That was private. Nothing as private when you scream into the void at 2 a.m. He stepped aside. Come in, 5 minutes. Bring the laptop in your backpack. Mia hesitated. The scooter idled behind her, exhaust curling in the cold. She glanced at the mansion, the gates, the invisible eyes watching from every angle. Then she killed the engine, slung the bag over her shoulder, and crossed the threshold. The kitchen glowed, warm copper pans, marble counters, a single stool pulled out like an invitation. Daniel set the coffee down and opened her laptop before she could protest. Lines of code filled the screen. He scrolled, nodded, typed 3 lines. The error vanished. Indentation, he said. Python S passive-aggressive about white space. Mia stared. You fixed it in 10 seconds, 40 years of practice. He closed the lid. Same time tomorrow. Bring the next bug, bring better coffee. She found her voice. Why? Because I am dying and boredom is worse than morphine. He wheeled the oxygen tank toward the hallway. Side door. Dante, ring. Dante, tell anyone. The door shut. Mia stood in the sudden quiet. Laptop warm against her chest. Fern coffee cooling on the counter. Outside, the drone buzzed again, closer this time. She slipped out, started the scooter, and rode into the dawn with $12 billion watching her leave. Inside, Daniel opened the encrypted drive labeled M. He added a new file, a single line of code, and a note in plain text. Teach her everything. Start with coffee. He saved, closed the lid, and wheeled toward the fireplace. The will waited in the drawer, unchanged. The world waited outside the gates, wrong about everything. The next morning, Mia arrived at 4:15, helmet fogged from the ride, backpack heavier with a borrowed charger, and a spiral notebook filled with questions. The side door opened before her knock landed. Daniel wore the same charcoal sweater, oxygen tank rolling smooth behind him like a shadow on wheels. He took the coffee black, 2 sugars, fern crisp in the foam, and motioned her inside without a word. The kitchen smelled of toast and something citrus. A second stool waited at the island, pulled out exactly far enough. Daniel set a second laptop beside hers, matte black, no logo, screen already glowing with a terminal window. "Bug 2, he said. "Show me." Mia opened her code, a loop that refused to break, spitting errors like sparks. She had wrestled it until 3 a.m., eyes burning, pride bruised. Daniel leaned in, breath cool against her ear, and typed 4 characters. The loop closed clean. "You were thinking in circles," he said. "Code doesn't care about drama." She laughed, surprised at the sound. "You always this gentle? Only when I am medicated." He slid a plate across the marble 2 slices of sourdough, butter melting into the craters. "Eat. Thinking burns calories." They worked until the sky outside shifted from black to bruised violet. Daniel explained recursion like a story, pointers like secrets, memory leaks like bad relationships. Mia scribbled in her notebook, pages filling with arrows and half sentences. When the coffee cooled, he refilled both cups from a French press older than she was. Steam curled between them like code compiling. At 5:47, the chef appeared in the doorway, apron crisp, eyes wide at the girl in the green apron. Daniel waved him off without looking up. "She has staff," he said. The chef retreated. Mia's cheeks burned, but Daniel kept typing, unfazed. He asked about her life between commands. She told him about the studio apartment with the leaky faucet, the double shifts at Brew Bite, the scholarship that covered tuition but not textbooks. He listened the way servers listen for port numbers, quiet, precise, storing every byte. When she mentioned her mom cleaning offices at night, he nodded once and opened a new file. Lines of code scrolled too fast to follow. "Payroll tweak," he muttered. "Night cleaners get hazard bump starting next cycle." He saved, closed, moved on. By the third morning, routine hardened. Mia arrived with coffee and a new bug. Daniel met her with toast and a harder problem. Security stopped asking questions. The chef left a third stool permanently pulled out. Mia's notebook thickened, margins crowded with Daniel's handwriting terse, elegant, merciless. He taught her to comment code like poetry, to debug like surgery, to name variables after people who had wronged her. She named one landlord and watched it crash spectacularly. They laughed until his oxygen alarm beeped. One dawn, rain slashed the windows. Mia's scooter hydroplaned on the driveway. She arrived soaked, apron clinging, hair plastered to her cheeks. Daniel met her with a towel and a dry hoodie Nexus Systems, vintage 1985, soft as flannel. She changed in the powder room, emerged dwarfed in fabric that smelled of cedar and old money. He studied her, eyes soft. "Looks better on you." They worked through the storm. Thunder rolled, code compiled. Daniel showed her the prototype he had never released, an AI that learned empathy by reading customer complaints. "Too human," he said. Board killed it. Mia ran a test query. "Why am I lonely?" The AI answered in plain text, gentle and exact. She stared until tears blurred the screen. Daniel closed the lid. Some things aren't ready for market. At 6:12, the side door opened without a knock. A lawyer in a navy suit stepped in, briefcase swinging, face arranged in practiced sorrow. "Mr. Harper, the foundation heads are," he stopped, eyes locking on Mia in the oversized hoodie, notebook open, coffee cup steaming. Daniel didn't he look up. "Meeting S tomorrow." She stays. The lawyer S mouth opened, closed, opened again. Daniel typed a single line, hit enter. The lawyer S phone buzzed. His calendar cleared for the week. He left without another word. Mia exhaled. "You just rescheduled a billionaire-S funeral prep. Priorities." Daniel wheeled back, oxygen hissing. "Same time tomorrow. Bring an umbrella." "And the empathy module. We were rewriting the board S obituary." He rolled toward the hallway, hoodie sleeves swallowing Mia's hands as she gathered her things. The rain eased to a whisper. She pulled the hood up, stepped into the wet dawn, and rode home with $12 billion rewriting its own code, one fern, one bug, one borrowed sweater at a time. The hoodie became permanent. Mia wore it to class, to shifts, to the laundromat where the dryers ate quarters. The Nexus logo faded to a ghost across her chest, but the sleeves still smelled of cedar and Daniel S. cologne. She arrived at 4:15 every morning now, scooter parked under the same dripping oak. Security waved her through without checking ID. The chef left a third plate egg scrambled soft, sourdough toasted dark, orange slices fanned like sunrise. Daniel waited at the island, oxygen tank silent, eyes brighter than the day before. They graduated from bugs to architecture. Daniel opened the vault servers humming in a basement room colder than winter. Racks of blinking lights stretched like city blocks. He rolled between them, fingers trailing cables, voice low. "This is where the money lives. Don T, worship it." Mia followed, notebook forgotten, mouth open. He showed her the original Nexus kernel, handwritten on yellow legal pads now laminated behind glass. "Version 0.1, he said. "Cost me a marriage and a dog." She laughed. He didn't. Mornings bled into afternoons. Mia skipped lectures, emailed professors excuses about family emergencies. Daniel paid her tuition in full from an account labeled coffee expenses. She protested. He ignored her. They built a private repo FernOS, a lightweight system that learned from user habits and forgave mistakes. Mia wrote the forgiveness module after watching Daniel cough blood into a tissue and pretend it was coffee. The AI apologized for glitches in 17 languages. He tested it, eyes wet, and merged her pull request without comment. Rumors leaked. A paparazzo snapped Mia leaving at dawn. Hoodie swallowed by rain. The photo hit tabloids. Mystery girl in Harper S. hoodie intern or heir. Brew Bite fired her for conflict of interest. She arrived crying, apron balled in her fist. Daniel met her at the side door with a new key card and a corner office no one used. "Your shift starts when you do," he said. She moved into the guest wing single bed, desk facing the vineyard, window cracked open to night air. Her mom visited once, stood in the marble foyer clutching a purse older than Mia, and left with a check that paid off 3 decades of debt. Daniel S. health slid in increments. Oxygen flow increased. Stairs became impossible. Mia carried the tank when nurses were off duty, arms burning, pride louder. They worked from his bedroom now hospital bed, angled toward floor-to-ceiling screens, blankets tucked military tight. He taught her valuation models between morphine drips, venture math while ice clinked in water glasses. She read him customer emails aloud. He dictated replies in perfect sentences. When pain sharpened, she coded in silence, fingers flying, until he tapped her wrist enough. They watched old sci-fi movies projected on the ceiling, arguing over plot holes until he fell asleep mid-sentence. One February night, fever climbed. Mia found him on the floor, tank tipped, face gray. She dragged him. To bed, called the doctor. Refused to leave. Nurses bustled, machines beeped. Daniel woke at 3 a.m., voice a thread. "Open the drawer." She did. Inside, a flash drive shaped like a fern. "Everything," he rasped. "Board votes next week. They'll kill FernOS. Don ET let them." She clutched the drive, tears hitting the blanket. He touched her cheek with fingers cold as code. You read the patch I never wrote. Morning came pale. Doctor stabilized him. Mia stabilized the repo. She pushed to commit at 415 sharp forgiveness v2.0 and watched the build succeed. Daniel smiled from the bed, eyes closed, thumb up. The hoodie hung on the chair, sleeves too long. Nexus logo cracked but holding. Outside, drones circled closer. Headlines screamed louder. Lawyers sharpened pens. Inside, a barista and a billionaire built an operating system that apologized for being human. One line, one breath. One borrowed sunrise at a time. Daniel S. fever broke on a Thursday in March, but the victory felt borrowed. The doctors spoke in lowered voices, days, maybe weeks. Mia slept in the chair beside his bed, hoodie bunched under her cheek, fern drive clutched like a talisman. At 4:03 a.m., his eyes opened clear for the first time in days. He reached for the tablet on the nightstand, fingers trembling. She woke instantly, helped him sit, adjusted the oxygen. He typed a single line in the private repo. Merge main into legacy. Then he closed the lid and looked at her, really looked, the way he had the first dawn over bad coffee. Board meets Monday, he said, voice sandpaper. They'll vote to sell Nexus piece by piece. Scrap Fern OS, pocket the change. He pressed a small remote into her palm. Press the red button at 9:17 a.m. sharp. Not before, not after. The remote was warm from his skin, heavier than it looked. Promise me. Mia nodded, throat tight. What happens at 9:17? Everything. He coughed, winced, waved off the nurse hovering in the doorway. Willis in the safe. Combination is your birthday backward. Read it after. He gripped her wrist. You'll hate it. Do it anyway. The weekend blurred. Mia coded from the bedside chair, pushing final commits while Daniel drifted in and out. She fixed a memory leak he had circled in red pen months ago. He woke once, watched her type, and whispered, Indentation, Reyes. She fixed the white space without looking up. Nurses came and went. Morphine dripped steady. On Sunday night, he refused the next dose. Need my head clear, he told the doctor. The doctor argued. Daniel stared until the man left. At midnight, he asked for the hoodie. Mia helped him into it, sleeves swallowing his arms. Nexus logo stretched across a chest that rose too shallow. He looked 25 again, or maybe she just wanted him to. They opened the balcony doors. Cold air swept in, carrying the scent of wet pine from the hills. He leaned on her shoulder. Oxygen tank silent for once. Stars crowded the sky like unoptimized code. I never had kids, he said. Built servers instead. Servers don't forgive. Mia's tears hit the balcony rail, evaporated in the wind. He squeezed her hand. You do. Monday dawned steel gray. The board convened in the glass-walled conference room downtown, 12 suits, one empty chair at the head. Mia arrived at 8:55 in the hoodie and jeans, fern drive in her pocket, remote in her fist. Security tried to stop her at the lobby. She pressed the elevator button anyway. The doors opened on the executive floor at 9:12. Lawyers parted like code splitting for a break point. She walked the long hallway alone, boots silent on marble, heart loud enough to debug. At 9:16, she stood outside the glass. The chairman's silver hair, shark smile gestured for her to wait. She did in tea. At 9:17 exactly, she pressed the red button. Every screen in the building lit up. The will projected in bold white text across the conference room wall, the lobby monitors, the stock. Ticker in Times Square. One sentence, centered, unmissable. I leave Nexus Systems, all patents, and controlling shares to Mia Reyes, age 22, barista, effective immediately. The rest, 12 billion funds the Fern Foundation. She decides, she codes, she forgives. The room erupted. Lawyers shouted. The chairman's face went purple. Mia opened the glass door, stepped inside, and laid the fern drive on the table. Merge main into legacy, she said, voice steady. Meeting adjourned. Back at Harper House, Daniel watched the feed from his bed, volume low. He smiled once, small, sharp, satisfied, then closed his eyes. The oxygen hissed softer. Mia arrived 20 minutes later, hoodie sleeves pushed up, eyes red but dry. She sat beside him, took his hand. "They were screaming," she said. He squeezed her fingers. "Good," he rasped. "Now build something that doesn't tea." At 11:43 a.m., the monitors flatlined. Nurses moved in quiet efficiency. Mia stayed until they covered his face with the hoodie, Nexus logo over his heart like a patch. She kept the remote. She kept the drive. She kept the promise. The funeral was small, held at dawn in the vineyard behind Harper House, because Daniel had hated crowds and loved the way fog clung to the grapevines. Only 20 people stood between the rows. Mia in the faded hoodie, sleeves rolled to the elbow. The chef who had learned to draw ferns and foam. The night cleaners whose paychecks now included college funds for their kids. The hospice nurse who cried without shame. No press. Security kept drones at bay with signal jammers Daniel had designed in 1998. A single cello played a Bach prelude Mia had found in his private playlist. When the final note faded, she pressed the red button one last time. Every screen in the mansion lit up with Fern OS booting. Clean white interface, Fern logo pulsing gentle green. The message centered. "Forgiveness deployed. Thank you for running me." Then the screens went dark. The will was done. Mia moved into the master suite because the guest wing felt like borrowed time. She kept Daniel's desk exactly as he left it. Yellow legal pads, red pen, coffee ring shaped like a continent. The first board meeting she chaired from that desk via hologram. 12 suits flickering in and out of focus while she wore the hoodie and jeans. She fired the chairman on the spot for calling Fern OS sentimental bloatware. The stock dipped 3%, then climbed 7 when she open-sourced the empathy module at midnight. Downloads hit 10 million by sunrise. Servers hummed in the basement like a heartbeat. The Fern Foundation launched the same week. $12 billion seeded free coding camps in every city where Daniel had once fixed a server with duct tape and spite. Scholarships carried one requirement. Recipients had to teach one person who would never afford the class. The chain grew exponential. Mia flew coach, slept in airport lounges, handed out laptops in libraries that smelled of old paper and New Hope. She kept a sticky note on every device. Indentation matters. So do you. Nexus Systems changed its name the day the new sign went up. Fern Systems, letters carved from reclaimed redwood. The campus opened its gates. The cafeteria served coffee with optional ferns. Employees brought dogs. The dogs learned to fetch frisbees in the courtyard, where Daniel had once coded version 0.1 on a picnic table. Mia walked the paths at 4:15 every morning, hoodie sleeves pushed high, fern drive now a necklace against her skin. She paused at the oak tree where her scooter used to park and smiled at the plaque bolted to the trunk. "Side gate deliveries welcome! Knock once." Her mom quit cleaning offices. She ran the Foundation-S community kitchen instead, teaching grandmothers to code between stirring pots of pozole. The first graduate was a 68-year-old widow who built an app that matched surplus restaurant food with shelters. Mia cried in the server room when the download counter rolled past 100,000. The servers forgave her tears. They had learned empathy from the best. Years folded like clean code. Mia turned 30 in the vineyard, barefoot, surrounded by kids who had never known a world without Fern OS. The cello played again. Bach, always Bach. She wore a new hoodie, same vintage cut, Nexus logo replaced by a tiny embroidered fern. The original hung framed in the lobby, glass cracked where Daniel's elbow had hit it the day he taught her recursion. She toasted with coffee, black, 2 sugars, fern perfect in the foam. The chef, now head of campus dining, had trained an army of baristas. They all drew ferns. They all remembered. Finn arrived the following spring. Daniel Finn Reyes, named for the man who had given her a future and the operating system that apologized for crashes. He learned to walk between server racks, chubby hands slapping cold metal, giggling at the blinking lights. Mia coded one-handed while he napped on her chest, hoodie bunched under his cheek. The empathy module updated itself nightly, learning lullabies in 17 languages. When Fin's first word was fern, the internet melted. Mia posted the video privately. The Foundation S kids reenacted it in 100 dialects. At 40, Mia stood on the same balcony where Daniel had watched stars. The vineyards stretched silver under moonlight, grapes heavy with the vintage they would bottle as Legacy 2040. Finn, 10 now, lean and quick, leaned over the rail beside her. "Mom, why do we keep the side gate open?" She pointed to the oak tree, plaque glinting. "Because someone once knocked with coffee and changed everything." He nodded, serious, then ran inside to debug his homework bot. The hoodie hung on the chair, sleeves still too long, Nexus ferns soft under years of wash and wear. The world moved on. Competitors rose and fell. Fern OS shipped on every device from watches to refrigerators. The forgiveness module became industry standard. Phones apologized for dropped calls. Cars forgave parallel parking fails. Smart homes dimmed lights when voices rose. Mia refused IPOs, refused buyouts, refused to sell a single share. The Foundation S endowment grew to $20 billion, then $30, funded by patents Daniel had buried in plain sight. Every dollar circled back to classrooms, to kids who coded their way out of corners the world had painted them into. On the 20th anniversary of the Red Button, Mia hosted a dawn picnic under the oak. Thousands came, camp graduates, night cleaners turned engineers, baristas turned CTOs. They brought coffee, laptops, stories. The cello played. Finn, 20 now, unveiled the new plaque bolted beside the first. He left money to the wind. She built roots. Mia wore the original hoodie, threads bare at the cuffs, Fern faded to whisper. She pressed the red button one last time. Every screen on campus lit up with a single line of code Daniel had written the night before he died. Legacy complete. Run free. The screens went dark. The crowd roared. Someone started singing the Bach prelude. Voices joined until the vineyard shook. Mia stood under the oak, hoodie sleeves pushed high, tears cutting clean tracks through laugh lines she had earned. Finn hugged her hard enough to crack ribs. The side gate stood open. A scooter puttered up the drive, rider young, helmet fogged, paper cup balanced in one hand. Mia smiled, stepped forward, and opened the door. The legacy unlocked, line by line, fern by fern, forgiveness by forgiveness, rolled on into mornings that smelled of coffee and code and the stubborn, unstoppable belief that the next bug could always be fixed. The next heart could always be taught to apologize. And the next kid with a knock and a dream could still change the world.